Well, hi everybody again, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. If you've not been to this um, site before, make sure you follow it, because we do something every week in which we look at the future, we look at the state of the world, and we look at it through the eyes of a psychic medium and with our spiritual sight, as it were, and decide what's going to happen, where the world is going. I will give you some of my thoughts. I will give you some of my opinions as well. I'll give you some of my insights and predictions. And later in the show, you'll be able to ask me questions in this live psychic chat. So welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi guys. I see you already coming in from all over the world. I see you in here from Massachusetts, I think that is, Sweden. Some of you must be up at particularly weird times. I mean, Florida is light there now, but I see some of you in here from Las Vegas. Hi there, guys. It's nice to see you all, and thanks for joining me today for Coffee with Craig. And I, the question I putting up today is basically I'm going to talk about, will America ever be great again? Now that's quite a contentious title, actually, because obviously it reflects American politics a bit. But I thought I'd address this idea of what we mean by greatness. What do we mean by greatness? Also, when was America great? Was it great in the past? And what do we mean when we get a political slogan like "Make America Great Again"? What will it be? And what will be the future of America? I want to give a few thoughts about the longer term, my insights into the feelings about what will happen for the longer term future of America. So I'm going to have a chat with you first, and I know lots of you are jumping in now already and ready to ask questions, and lots of good mornings going over there I see in the chat. Thanks very much, guys. Nice to see you all. So have a few thoughts as we go along about what makes greatness, not just in America, but also, excuse me, I've had too many coffees. I've had 3 today because I'm so tired from doing so many readings yesterday. But what makes real greatness? What makes the real greatness of a human spirit? I want to gradually move towards that. And what do we mean by a greatness, both as a country and as an individual? So we'll have a think about that, and I'll tell you a few thoughts about where I think things are likely to go with my predictions and things. So will America ever be great again? I think one of the first things we have to look at is what do we mean by great? I mean, that slogan is not, obviously it's associated nowadays with the Trump campaign, and I'll cover some of the things on that, but it's a populist phrase. Frankly, it's a populist phrase. It wasn't actually invented by Donald Trump by any means. If you look at the history of that phrase, it was first used back in the 1980s by Ronald Regan, and I think he had his vice president, and it was Bush, wasn't it? But it was originally a phrase used by Ronald Reagan, who actually I quite like Ronald Reagan because he had a good sense of humor. But it's an odd phrase because it's quite a dangerous phrase in some respects, if you think about it, because it's making lots of assumptions in its title. Because first of all, it suggests there was past greatness. Okay, so that means that the American now is no longer great. So is it? What do you think? I mean, when you think about how Obama did it, he took a different tack to it, and his word was hope, wasn't it? One phrase, almost one word, hope, as if again things are bad and we hope for the future. And this is, again, a similar sort of idea, isn't it? Things are bad and we hope for greatness again, and we've fallen from grace. So the question is, was America ever great? That I think people have some opinions about that all around the world, but was it ever great? And what was its most pop um, highest position of greatness if it had fallen from grace? I mean, one of the things I'm quite interested in is what was going on in the minds of both America and Britain at the end of the Second World War, because there was a point, wasn't there, right at the end of the Second World War, when greatness could have been so big that it could have taken over the whole world. In the 1945, Churchill thought that what we should do after the Second World War is move on into Russia and take down the Communist Party that was growing with Stalin in Russia at the time. And at the end of the Second World War, America had the nuclear bomb, and although Oppenheimer and others were hoping to give that out to other people so that America couldn't become the most dominant country in the world, but there was a point where America could quite easily, together with Britain and France, I expect at the same time, would have marched into Russia and could have marched on to Moscow. General Patton was a very interesting and strange man, actually. He believed he was an incarnation of great Roman generals and things like that. But he said, we defeated the wrong enemy. And I often wonder to myself, what would have happened? What would have happened if General Patton, who was very much into the idea that they wanted to remake the world and to make America the greatest country on earth, not only the greatest country on earth, but world dominant that could never be challenged again. Patton wanted to many quotes from him where he wanted to actually move on in and push on to Moscow. Now, if that had happened, wouldn't it have been an unusual world we'd have faced now, because we'd have never seen the rise of Russia. Russia would have been under the shadow of the greatness of America. We probably wouldn't have seen the rise of Mao either, because if America would have been prepared to stamp on Stalin, they'd have probably been prepared to move on into China and stop the Maoist revolution. Might have been debatable whether Israel would have even been formed after the Second World War. Certainly, I don't think Iran could have risen to power as it's done today, because American oil would have dominated the world, and America would economically definitely have dominated oil production. Europe was in a mess. Europe needed to be rebuilt. Britain still was very, very powerful country at that time, as powerful, if not more powerful, just lost its height of power with the British Empire, but had the reach to reach into the world. And America, if Patton's ideas had come to pass, and Churchill's ideas, for that matter, had actually come to pass, and we'd have stormed in and pushed out fascism forever, would we have had a better world? Or would we have a world that had gone into an even greater decline? I'm just putting that out there first as we go on to this theme about what is greatness, because is greatness just dominance? Now, this is a dangerous word, isn't it? Greatness. Because it's open to so many interpretations. It's like that word God. It's open to so many interpretations. What do you think? What would have happened? I mean, Patton himself was very anti-Semitic, for example. So that's why I think, if people like that had been in control, I don't think we'd have seen the formation of Israel. So this is a populist slogan from the 1980s, from Reagan's campaign. And we have to think, what is greatness? I mean, if you look in the mind of Donald Trump for a moment and think, what does he think greatness is? What actually would you think that Donald Trump's vision of greatness is? What does he see great? Well, obviously, from his point of view, greatness to him is wealth. Greatness to him is money. Greatness to him is power through finance. Greatness to him is ownership of property and so forth. Greatness to him is these are his views of what he considers, I think, greatness to be, don't you think? And if he becomes the next president, which I think he will become the next president, as I've said, his panacea for the world, his way of dealing with things is not necessarily war, because an economist doesn't want to go to war. The first thing anybody that is in any form of financial situation is they want financial stability so they can make a profit. I know money has been made greatly out of wars, but generally the feeling is that stability is what helps help profits to grow. And so he would use different tactics to what are being used today when he comes into power. And I think we will see, economic pressures again put onto Russia, economic pressures again put onto China, and using the greatness of America's economic power and to build that greatness, as it were, because, surely the greatness of America, you only need to look around all the areas of Detroit and all things like that, and you'll see the greatness of America when it, dominated manufacturing in the world. Similarly, here in the UK, we look at the old empty, desolate factories of places like Manchester and Birmingham and Leeds, and all the greatness of the past all faded away as manufacturing has been taken over by different ways of making economic success. Now Britain, we're service industry. So, how would people like Brunel have looked upon that, and they would have looked at disdain at the fall of the greatness of Britain. Similarly, you can only look back through history again, other great nations have risen and fallen. When I go and I'm in Italy and we go to places like Rome and Pompeii, and we see the greatness of the past that is no more. So is there another sort of greatness that we look back to perhaps in America and in Britain here of when times were better? As you get older to my age, I always think times were better in the past. I liked the 60s, but it was also fraught with all sorts of awful things as well. But you kind of can look with a glorified way to look back to what was going on in earlier life. I think in the 1950s, there was a great, and that's before I was born in 1954, but that whole era from the 1950s through to the 1960s, there was a great sense of kind of utopian thinking going on those sides. We can do it. In America, it was perhaps at its greatest innovative time. It was perhaps at its most greatest period of self-confidence, wasn't it, in that time? You could build aeroplanes, you could build bridges, you could do just about anything. You could do it huge. Similarly, in Britain, we still had that carry on from the Victorian era when we would, you can still go for walks locally around here and see huge iron structures of railway lines and things. And they did all that with buckets and spades to dig out those great cuttings and things like that. The Irish did it for us. But, that I see that was another form of greatness. That is greatness in many ways is a kind of self-confidence, isn't it? So what do we mean by greatness in that respect? Isn't it we need all of us around the world, and I'm not just talking about America, but Britain and Europe, particularly the Western world, particularly as we call it, don't we need to get back our sense of we can do it? Our sense of that we are a great peoples and we are great nations and we have achieved great things. Instead, we're told to look back with disdain on these things and look back and say, what a terrible thing British Industrial Revolution was. We forget that it brought the modern world, but we say what a terrible thing it was. The only aspect of it we see is its shadow, the shadow of slavery, the shadow of enslavement of nations, the damage it did to many nations, which it did. No, it's true, but we ignore its brightness. And the same thing with America. People look at it and say, oh, what a terrible things it did in Vietnam, what terrible things it did around the world, what exploitation it did in this country, in that country, in that country, which it did. But we also forget its optimism, its drive, and how it brought about the modern age. Do we want to throw away all the inventions of the modern age? Do we want to throw away all our mobile phones, all our comforts? Do we want to go back to the times like when my nan used to live? My nan was lucky that didn't have shoes when she was a child. It lived in the Chapel area of Southampton. They didn't have shoes, and that's not far back. My grandmother. So today's, I feel we've now got kind of, don't you think? Because I'm talking here about the spirit of the age. So I'm looking at this from a spiritual aspect of what is the spirit of the age. I believe there's a sort of an energy to each age. And the spirit of the age, I don't know what you guys think, but the spirit of the age today seems to me to be very dysfunctional. It seems to be very selfish. It seems to be very inward looking and how much I hurt. There's no courage in people generally. There's a great laziness about the world, in my opinion. There's a great spiritual laziness. There's a falling asleep, um, and we let power go. This is where, what do we mean by greatness? We let the power go to all sorts of people. We give it away to multinational companies. We give it away to other countries that are rising in greatness, such as China. We give all our manufacturing away. We give all our everything, all our opportunities for jobs and advancement all go to other countries. And we hide ourselves in a world of sort of no self-confidence, in that out of which has come this strangeness of woke, and this strangeness of people being so uncertain about their gender and everything like that, and we flood our country with other nations, and we decry our own, and it becomes a terrible thing to be a white male, for example. Nowadays, there's something wrong with that. You're not sensitive enough, and so on. But where's our courage? Where's our strength? Where's our inventiveness? Where's our ability to change the world? So is that what we mean by greatness? Again, like I say, America had the chance to dominate the world at the time, at the end of the Second World War. Going back to that again, my thoughts go to the fact they had the bomb. America at that time was building 7 out of 8 of aircrafts in the world. They had a complete dominance of the aircraft industry. 80% of their planes, of Russian planes, were made in America. 100% of American trucks, of Russian trucks, were made in America. They could have easily wiped the world and forced a democracy upon the world. But would we have had anything good? What do you think? Would we have anything good? Or would have this so-called greatness, this huge national pride, which could turn into something quite dangerous? What would it have turned into? What do you think? What do you think would have happened to the world? It's an interesting thought experiment. What would have happened if America had pushed on? There'd probably be no European Union, for example. I wouldn't have needed to be, because that was a response to Russia and a response ultimately to China. So that wouldn't even happen either. We'd have had multiple nations, I expect, but all under the dominance of American power. But America was founded on spiritual principles, actually, when you think about it. Oops, camera's just gone. The camera flips. You probably wouldn't notice it, but it did. America was founded on spiritual principles. I live here. We live very, very close to Southampton. I was born in Southampton. Like I said, my grandmother there with no shoes in the docks there areas. But that's where the Mayflower actually sailed from. It sailed from Southampton, then to Plymouth, and then on to America. But it set sail from Southampton here. And America was actually founded on many, many spiritual ideas, albeit mainly Christian ideas, but it took in multiple views of spirituality. And those of you that might have read the works by Yogananda, had massive influence on many people, still including Steve Jobs and people like that, and many, many great leaders. I think Elon Musk loved it too. The Yogananda's book, Autobiography of Yogin, and his other teachings. He was a tremendously spiritually minded guru who followed through the legacy from someone called Maha Avatar Babaji, a deathless saint who was supposed to send the three wise men to see Jesus. He's supposed to live for thousands of years. But anyway, Yogananda felt that there was great hope for America's in the long-term future. And I feel the same, that in the long-term future of America, that essentially at heart, America is still a very spiritually minded nation once it sheds itself of its materialism. And this perhaps could be America's true greatness. I would think a better slogan might be, first and foremost, was "Let's make America sensible again." And then we used to have here, "I'm backing Britain." I'm backing sensible. I'm backing common sense. None of us seem to want to do that in any of the nations of the world, don't we? We have such bonkers leaders, all of us. Here in the UK, we certainly got a collection. We could feed the world with leaders to bring it all down. But being sensible again. But going back to sensibility, spirituality is I think the thing that would be the building blocks of true greatness. And although we live in very materialistic and dangerous times now, although we have so much things can worry ourselves in national politics with what's going on in Gaza and what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on possibly in Taiwan soon and all around the world, and within our own countries, the divisions that are coming. The only thing that could ever really all bring it together, the only thing to bring it together is ultimately spirituality, which again is an odd word because it can mean many things, just like the word greatness can. But I see in the future that there will be an arising of spirituality. Now, I've spoken about this many times before, and America will be one of the places where this will bloom. I think it will come out of the despair of having seen so much of America fall into decline, material decline. Often when there's material decline, there's new forces arise for good and bad. But often out of these periods in history, when we look at it, often there has been times when great spiritual movements have arisen. You only need to look at Christianity, for example. It was a great spiritual movement that swept Rome. And before that, remember, going before Christianity in India, we had Buddhism, came out of the Hindu religion and spread into around the world and became a world movement. All the great religions, Zoroastrianism, going further back still, spread like a light round the world. Taoism in China, and you look at it all. Well, I could go on, couldn't we? There's often been great movements that have often focused around an individual. And I feel we're going to get something, particularly with the world's huge ability to communicate instantly to every corner of the world. I feel something's going to happen in the future, and it's not far away. There's going to be a great awakening ahead, and I've spoken about that before. I see in the future that we will see a decline of China. I've spoken about this before too, and its eventual breakup and the fall of the Chinese Communist Party. I feel something's going to pop in China. I spoke about this way back, and in a time when this seemed impossible. But now, the economic situation, particularly in China, is getting quite dire. And these were things I was talking about some time ago. And I don't think it's far away that we might get something pop there, as it were. How most of the population of China is all on the east coast of China. There's whole huge areas, Tibet and the Western China, are empty of people, with different types of people in there, like the Uyghur people, Uyghur people, I can never get their name, to the north of Tibet and all in that area in Western China. I see those countries breaking away and becoming independent. And Tibet too, ultimately becoming independent. It has a huge force of Chinese troops in there all the time, but I don't think China would be able to sustain this. And I feel ultimately, including Hong Kong, that China will break up. And this will become one of the major things in the way ahead. Not this year, but I feel it's there. I feel it's bubbling. I feel these things often grow in strength. And I feel this is going to become one of the major things in the world. And I've seen that a lot of manufacturing, and the cheap manufacturing, as it were, will go to particularly to new countries. It will go to, for example, it will go to India, which will rise in strength. It will go to places like Vietnam that are ripe for things like that. It will go to places like Mexico too, which I think ultimately Mexico will rise in power and may even one day become part of America. So there's a prediction for you for the longer term, but the much longer term. I also believe that Ireland and Britain will also, in the much longer term future, perhaps beyond my life, but they will merge with America. So maybe one day somebody will look at this video far in the future and say, hey, he got it right. It took a while, but he got it right. But I feel that will ultimately happen because although it's easy for politicians to play down a country. Everybody here says pothole Britain, what a mess it is, and it does give you a sense of decline when you see all these type of small things that make the world feel rotten around you. And they talk about the decline of America, the division of America, the fall of America, make great headlines. But ultimately, I feel, particularly with America, that I don't see America will fall into disrepair and become a subservient of China and the East. I feel it will continue its straightness and its strength. We'll see the rise, I feel, of India, but that won't threaten America. That won't be a warfare between America and India. It won't become like the tensions we got already with China that started to have expansionist sort of views. America, its greatest moment was after the Second World War, when it could have dominated the world, like I said, but it didn't. It chose not to push on. It chose to allow other countries to grow, and it chose to help redevelop Europe, to help Berlin with the airlift and all those things. So actually, that was its greatest moment of greatness, because greatness is often the greatest people are those that don't want power. If you want someone to rule you, put someone who doesn't want power in control. That's what you really need, and that's what I feel we'll have in the future of the world. So I see America will still continue to dominate the world in the centuries to come. I feel that the big thing with America, though, that's going to give it the hardest thing yet in its history is going to be enormous environmental problems. Are we going to have that throughout the world, in China and India and everywhere like that? And the waters of India, I feel, drying up from gradually in time. It might be something that I feel I'm getting a feeling of that now. I'm seeing the waters of India being turned off. And I just feel that that will become a problem in time, but will be solved ultimately. I feel technologically we'll solve it and maybe have to get rid of some of the dams in Tibet. But I feel that this is going to be environmental issues. Water is going to be a huge issue around the world. And I feel America will have a number of things that will give it massive environmental troubles. And we're talking not in the near future here, but I feel I'm talking in centuries here. I'm talking in the longer term future. And I feel that those will be the things that people have to deal with, and the heating of the sun, because I feel we won't get an ice age, we'll get a hot age. I feel that, and it's not to do with global warming in the normal sense of pollution and so forth. There's something with the sun's activity. I feel will be something we'll have to deal with in the future. But hopefully, I also feel that there will be, like, I feel this spiritual awakening around the world, led by India ultimately, as religions fall away. Eventually, even Islam will join the great world awakening of a non-denominational, non-religious spirituality that I feel will fill the world. Even Islam will join it. They will be the last to join, but they too will join. And there will be a world awakening, and it will mean we don't need to police the world in quite the same way, because I do feel there will be a peaceful world ahead. I do feel that I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing the pictures of the images of quite a bright future for the world, I feel. And once we're over these problems, and I had, when I went into quite a deep meditation and sort of fell into it earlier today, and I kind of asked my unconscious or the spirit guides just to show me what's the further ahead. And I saw American flags on Mars, and I saw American flags on the moon, and I saw American building its bases and so forth on Mars. And I feel we will colonize Mars, and I saw America there. So that can't mean America's lost its dominance in the. I felt it was American, and I feel that there's quite a lot of hope for the way ahead with this. And so those are my opening thoughts for today, guys. And I'm going to let you sort of ask me some questions now. So I've seen your kind of comments coming on the left of my screen here now. So you'll see me looking over to the screen. So if you've got any questions or comments, now's a good time to add them, because I won't go scrolling up the screen. You might have already put something in. You're welcome to put it in again. What's the future for women's rights in the USA? Now, I'm talking here in long-term futures here, because I feel that we're coming into a new age. The new age is dominated much more by female thought than male thought in some respects, in a different sort of way. It's like a return of the goddess idea. It's a return of the equality of male and female. We've had division in our world. We've had our division between this class and that class. We've had divisions between this religion and that religion, this political side and that political, and male and female, and male, female, and not shores, right? So I feel that what we will get with female rights will be a tremendous improvement, and it will be taken as that said thing, and I think there is a mistake at the moment, though. And a lot of you probably tap me on this, but I think a lot of women are very unhappy because they can't fulfill female roles without being sort of criticized. I think many men are unhappy, and young men, particularly our kids, are unhappy at the male side, because they feel that they can't be male. they made to be feminized. And I think this danger of men trying to do be women and women trying to be men, is something that can be quite difficult. You know, I see someone said that. I thought that I think that's quite funny because I've not said it. You have, so I won't get in trouble, will I? When you see it in the workplace, often women will undermine and try to destroy by subterfuge, where men will fight each other to the death. And so we got a kind of a different way the world works. You know, I mean, nobody's right, are they? Nobody's good or bad. You know, the men and the women are just as bad as each other, just as good as each other. We got to look to each other's strengths. But I feel that one of the things that's happened with the workplace, particularly, is we are kind of all sort of trying to compete. We all want to be the male leader, as it were. And is that really that important? Isn't it better to get back to family values a bit more and to some of the traditional roles? I mean, why do people see it as bad for a person to be a mother? Because it's almost like, oh, I can't be a mother. I've got to go back to work. I must be back in work. You know, I can't spend the first 5 years bringing my children up because that's demeaning. It's not. It's the greatest thing you can do in a life, surely. I mean, I was a single parent for 9 years with a baby from 6 months old before I met Jane. So I know what it's like to be a mother, right? So, but I think it's one of the greatest things I ever did in life. And I think it's one of the greatest things. And I know other people that I know a film producer who's doing really well at the moment. And he was a single parent as well from with a babe, you know, and you still can achieve, right? And I think it's a great blessing, that, and I think we make a lot of mistakes with that type of thing, you know. Let's all do our roles and let's be happy with it, you know. And so I've gone on to the LGBTQ stuff a bit. I see someone says, I'm going to see what you've asked. I couldn't read it, so I might be clicking things I wish I hadn't. LGBTQ people were bullied and abused in the past. Everyone should be free and do what they want, and that is important too, because it's surely spirituality is also, I mean, everything's division at the moment, and I think we need to sort these divisions out, you know. I mean, it's and tolerance is not always going to work, you know. We have to also have rules, but equality of human spirit, we're all human spirits. Surely that's a very, very important thing, isn't it? You know, and it's so important. I see someone's picking up there on the, if I can catch you, I sometimes catch the wrong one. Right, I spent 7 years being a home dad, and I know it was the best decision I ever made. James, and in my time, whoops, sorry, James. In my time, it was unheard of for a guy to bring up a baby. I mean, it's much, much, much more common now. But I'm going back in the 1980s, and you know, to get a court ruling on it was not easy. You know, I had to have a very strong case. So these things, but you know, like I say, we value the wrong things, don't we? Again, what I'm asking is, what is greatness? You know, in your life, what has been your greatest achievement? You know, has your when you leave this world? Because I often think it's good to think of our lives when we're dead. What will we look back when ISIS or whatever it was measures us against the feather, right? He measures the soul against the feather, and if the soul's heavier than a feather, you're chucked into hell and you don't go to the heavenly world of the pharaohs. I think that's quite an interesting image. The lightness of our being, the truth of ourselves, our comfortableness with ourselves, our oneness with God is what gives us the lightness of a feather, as it were. So when you look back at your life, what heavy things will you see and what light things will you see? You know, what will you say I did? Will you say, I wish I'd spent more time at the office, you know, or will you think to yourself, I wish I spent more time with my family? The greatness that we achieve in life, the greatness that we take with us into this next world, surely are acts of love. That's the only thing, really, isn't it? That's valuable. Our acts of love. Is there anything else that is more important than that? Anyway, I'm going on, don't I? So just look at some of your comments. You've got some interesting comments and ideas. Greatness is the ability to see everyone's point of view without offering our opinion. Well, I think we should offer our opinion, actually, because greatness is also being able to accept an opinion that you don't like, and know that that's another alternative idea. Because this is, I think, another thing that's broken down, surely. We don't debate. We're scared to debate, you know. We're scared to debate topics that we don't feel right about, you know, but we just don't talk about it because we might get cancelled. We might get our YouTube channel cancelled if we don't talk about things. Now, it's so important that we debate. And I think particularly in YouTube and in not YouTube, in education, we need to bring back into schools a very big element of debate, and the ability to be able to stand up against the teachers' views who often swamp what kids are thinking or the kids' parents are sometimes thinking. Just question coming up. What about the hostages? Are they alive? I'm feeling they are still alive. There's still some hostages out there, and I think we'll still get some hostages freed. I feel that we will get that coming up. So that's something I'd already had in my mind. I've thought about that already. So one thing there. Sorry. Focus on the future. You do want and allow others their beliefs, and that's true. Beliefs are. I always worry about that word belief because belief means if you have a belief, it means you believe this, but you don't believe that, or you can believe something without evidence. I believe there's a chocolate teapot circling the earth, and I believe that, and whether it's true or not, I believe it. And if I'm given loads of evidence to prove there's no chocolate teapot circling the earth, then if I hold on to my belief too much, I'm in danger. Belief's not a good thing, but we do have to challenge belief. And we have to challenge that with evidence, and that's where science and things thrive. But also faith, perhaps, is the better word, isn't it? We also have a sort of a faith in the knowledge that there's more to this. And there's also our personal observation of who we are is also important. It goes beyond some of the material arguments for belief. But belief is a thing I'm very careful about using that word. And you're saying love is the key. Love is the answer. Now, what is the question? Well, Macron, yeah, I've said that I felt he might go this year. I hadn't said at the time of the Paris Olympics, but it's interesting, Casper. Macron could go at the time of the Paris Olympics. It's the sort of time he could fall from power. But I feel he will go. So timing is always almost an impossibility. With the work we do as mediums and psychics, and they'll all tell you that, there is belief and there is delusion. That's going back to that topic, and I think that's true. Sometimes belief is a step towards delusion, but then there's also stubbornness of reading the evidence, which is where I've had these arguments in the past with Richard Dawkins and people. Woke is good when it turns into spiritual woke. What do we mean by that? Again, woke has become a word a bit like make America great. What do we mean by great? What do we actually mean by woke is questionable as well. Because I see it as what was one thing has turned into something else. And it's not what it was intended to be with its original thing. Xi Jinping, I don't think, has got long with us. Actually, I think Xi Jinping is not here for long. I get the feeling there might be a change of leadership coming up. I'm not quite how far that is ahead. I don't feel quite on us yet, but that might be something for 2025. You'll probably find in my 2025 predictions, I'm going to be saying Xi Jinping will be gone. Not quite sure it's with us quite yet. And I'll just take that last question. What do you think about Freemasonry? Which is an interesting topic. I think people fantasize around Freemasonry. It was interesting because yesterday evening, I did one of my online workshops. And you can, those of you, I've got a new thing. You can join and follow the channel, right? And you can click a little button below called join. And that you give a subscription and you can help support the channel, right? So you become a YouTube member as such. Okay, it's advert, but it's relevant. And I posted the video of this in that little section. Now, if you want to look at it, because I put extra videos in there and things like that, different tiers and so on. But click the join, you'll see a little video about it, what it is. But last night when we were doing the demonstration, one of the people that came through was a Freemason, and he was proud to be a Freemason. And he appeared in the reading. I was giving the reading to the lady, and I said, this man is all in Freemason regalia, which she accepted. That was her father, was like that. And it's always made me think, does Freemasonry continue on the spirit side? Not easy to keep secrets on the spirit side, but I've often had come through in spirit messages people that are Freemasons. That's an interesting comment there. Freemasonry, immature boys clubs. I had to put it up. Sorry, that was quite funny. They said that. I nearly joined at once. My father was a Freemason and things like that, and I went along to a few of them, and I thought it's not for me, because I know there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. The Rosicrucianism and things like that go into a bit more of a mystical side. The secrets of Freemasonry are quite interesting, but they're all out there, really. You know, the ideas of the Masons coming back from the times of the pyramids. The idea also, but is also contrary to that. People often say, "Oh, this was something that was set up in the 17th century when landlords and things and estate owners had more time on their hands than know what to do with, and it became a pseudo thing." That also there was competing with it was also the Order of the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucians and other secret societies. So it's a society with secrets. The Mason says, not a secret society. Okay, which I think is quite an important distinction. And I think people like David Icke and that, I think they over fantasize about what it is. Most people that I've known who have gone high up in Freemasonry have been prepared to tell you a little bit about it. It's not some evil dark organization. I don't think. I think it's more like not a boys club, but I think it's something where people who like ceremony, people who like that type of thing go. Skull and Bones might be a little bit more of a different organization. Who knows? Political ones. That's the one that they say dominates American politics sometimes. Who knows? We don't know. If these societies are secret, then we'll know nothing about them, will we? They'll keep their secrets. And I think there's also many spiritually minded secret societies, but they're not seen as a secret society. There's orders that I feel that maintain and keep the knowledge of spirituality alive, which people would die for rather than give the secrets. I know it sounds a bit Indiana Jones, but the people that would have protected the the ancient knowledge throughout the world, I believe that it's not like a secret society, but there's knowledge that can't be shared because it's beyond normal human understanding. Certainly some of the things I've studied in my yoga have been secret, that you're not allowed to pass on to other people. You're not allowed to teach. You can only teach it person to person. And I understand the reason for that being not because it's something that's secret from the world that we've got to protect the world from, but it's because it can't be understood, right, with normal human understanding. You only need to look at the way normal traditional yoga has gone in the world now, where it's become a physical exercise. I point out, as I've said before, Patanjali never mentioned a single exercise in the Yoga Sutras, which is the oldest yogic text. Completely misunderstood yoga is nowadays. Total nonsense, most of what's going out there. But anyway, I'm rabbiting now. So hopefully you've enjoyed that tonight. Go and have a look at the join button at the bottom of the screen. If you're on I think you see them on a PC. You probably see it on normal. You might consider becoming one of my followers on YouTube, which helps support my channel. That money helps me and Jane and helps us to give more time to doing these type of things. And also have a look on my website, because there's another one of, if you enjoyed the video on there, for example, when I was talking about the group readings I do, where people come in and you come in and there's 15 if you come in, and I do readings for as many as I can. Those are quite fun too to do, and I enjoyed that one last night. There's still one on the website. There's still a few places left. I hope to be putting up another one soon also about how to read the I Ching and give some I Ching reading, so you can get a little bit of an understanding of that, those that heard me reference that a number of times. So there's lots to see there, lots to see on the site, hopefully, and hopefully you'll support this channel, right? I'm going to put up my little reviews again at the ending. You notice there's a few new ones stuck in there towards the end, and a few extra ones I've got to put in there as well, because I said about there being a jab for cancer, and I noticed that's been the papers lately. Anyway, thanks for joining me again. See you all soon. Don't forget to put a comment. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget the thumbs up, because it helps the old algorithm to push the videos up and some more people see it. Anyway, thanks all for supporting us. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. Bye for now.
If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, the Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism.
And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine.
I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short.
I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. Marvellous person she is. She does something that extraordinary, that could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay.
Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right?
A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023.